Do you know that Pink Floyd is widely regarded as one of the most successful bands of all time and has sold more than 250 million records worldwide? Yes, that's true, but what's crazy is that this band has achieved many awards and has made a lot of money even though its members have consistently been in conflict with each other, and a lot of this has been extremely public. In order to make any band, business, or society successful, it is often considered important for its members to be united, but this is not the case with Pink Floyd. The two driving forces of the group, David Gilmour, the guitarist, and Roger Waters, the former primary lyricist, have had some pretty aggressive disagreements, tensions, and cold wars ever since they have been working together. This has also led to Roger quitting the band in 1985. But after the first few negative encounters that were made public, Gilmour too took action and finally broke his silence, and this was probably driven by the need to clarify his position and make sure that the masses have access to both sides of the story. But before I tell you the story of one of music's greatest ever feuds, let's have a quick look at Pink Floyd's beginning and understand how it all started. In 1965, Roger Waters started the band Pink Floyd with Barrett, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright. Initially things were going smoothly, but then trouble began when David Gilmour officially became part of Pink Floyd. To understand this feud, you need to know that David Gilmour was a man with a vision, one of those unapologetically creatively driven types. He had unique ideas and a strong passion to execute them. While this is a positive trait to have, it resulted in Waters feeling threatened and just not as powerful in the group anymore like he previously did. Despite these differences, the two worked together for around 20 years and produced some pretty great albums like The Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, and The Wall. Pink Floyd made really unique, mind-bending rock music, and Roger Waters was the one coming up with the ideas and writing the words. But the other guys like Richard Wright also had a big part in making their sound cool. Sometimes people don't remember how important Wright was, but he really made a difference with his keyboard skills. So along with Gilmour, he was a key part of the band. However, according to Gilmour, in the late 70s, Waters began tightening his grip, and this often meant that others felt like he was limiting their creative potential and being overly dominant. During this period of tension, Gilmour began producing his own albums, the first of which, David Gilmour, was released in 1978. This was Gilmour showing the world what he could truly do when he wasn't restrained by the limitations that Waters put on him, and this Gilmour-Waters feud continued to rage on for many years. Next, Gilmour and Waters performed together in 2010 for a charity called Hoping Foundation, reportedly laughing and joking together like old times. And in 2011, Gilmour performed Comfortably Numb with Waters at the O2 in London, and along with Nick Mason performed Outside the Wall for the show's finale. I know that you probably thought, oh, things are cool, now they are working together again, the feud is over, but you can't be more wrong. In a 2014 interview with Rolling Stone magazine, Gilmour took a little dig at Roger and remarked that he thought of him coming into something that has any form of democracy to it would just not be good for him. Implying, of course, that Waters was not good at effective collaboration. In 2020, Waters publicly expressed his frustration with Gilmour on Twitter. He shared a 5-minute video where he voiced his disappointment over not having access to Pink Floyd's social media. He accused David Gilmour of preventing him from being featured on the Pink Floyd website. Waters also expressed his frustration about Polly Samson, Gilmour's wife, being able to promote her work through those channels while he wasn't able to feature his own solo projects. Even after almost 40 years, the two were still having disagreements. In 2022, they couldn't agree on the re-release of their album Animals, and this issue was also discussed childishly on social media. David firmly said that it is pretty unlikely that he and Roger will resolve their differences over the reissue of the album. I must also add here that the main reason why their complex relationship issues and problems have been noticed by the public is because the two have on multiple occasions expressed their concerns on social media, posting stories and making controversial statements, and trust me, this entire situation is much more petty than it sounds right now. So now we know that the tension between these two are massive, but what's the reason behind it? I have already explained many of these earlier, but here is Gilmour's perspective on this matter. David and Roger didn't always agree on the direction of the music and creative aspect of production, and this became really obvious when they were making The Wall and the final cut. Waters was more into creating music with big stories and ideas, while Gilmour preferred a more classic rock style with a focus on great melodies and amazing instrument playing. Their different points of view caused a lot of arguments in the studio, with each of them trying to be the boss creatively. Gilmour has talked a lot about these arguments, saying that they made working together pretty difficult. Even with all this tension, Gilmour's musical talent and Waters' deep lyrics led to some of the band's best music. But at the same time, all the fighting laid the groundwork for Waters leaving the band later on. The two had a tough working relationship with a lot of personal and professional disagreements. Waters was strong-willed and sometimes bossy, which clashed with Gilmour's more easygoing nature. This caused a lot of tension and conflict within the band, especially in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Gilmour has said that this time was really difficult, and the strain in their working relationship affected both their personal interactions and their professional work together. The growing dislike between the two musicians made it hard for them to work well together, and this eventually led to Waters leaving the band in 1985. Gilmour has often talked about this time with a sense of frustration, recognizing the challenges, but also the great music that came out of their difficult partnership. Following Waters' departure, Gilmour assumed a more prominent role in leading Pink Floyd and took on greater responsibility for the band's direction and output. During Gilmour's time leading the band, they made albums like A Momentary Lapse of Reason and The Division Bell. These albums had a different feel compared to their earlier ones, but fans still loved them and the band's reputation stayed strong. Gilmour is proud of these albums because he sees them as proof that the band can handle tough times and change with the times. He also talks about how the band worked well together during this time, which was a nice change from the arguments they had in the past. Gilmour thought this was a chance for the band to keep its history alive while trying new things. Do you remember when Gilmour and Waters performed together at the Live 8 concert in 2005? It was a big deal for their fans and for them too, because they haven't always gotten along. Gilmour has explained just how important these performances are to him on multiple occasions, but they did not solve everything between them. He's willing to play with Waters for charity events because he knows how much of an impact their music has had. But he was also quite realistic and practical about the situation and played it safe by adding that they probably won't fully reunite because they still have their old differences. While Gilmour has said a lot of things not all very positive in nature about Pink Floyd and the division among the band members over the years, he still believes it's important to look at the good things about the band and try to move on from any disagreements. He always talks about how the music and the experiences the band shared are the most important things to remember. When he has been interviewed or appeared in public, he has said that he wants to focus on celebrating the band's successes instead of thinking about the problems they had in the past. This positive way of thinking has been a big part of what Gilmour has done after leaving Pink Floyd, as he's kept making music on his own and working with other musicians. Whose side are you on, Gilmour or Waters? Make sure to let us know in the comments below.